Okay, so what we did last Friday was we started to have a look at perfect competition. So let's review what we understand about perfect competition. So one thing we understand about perfect competition is the sense in which it's perfect. What perfect competition is supposed to be is perfectly price competitive. So there's nothing really very perfect about perfect competition in many ways. It's a pretty stupid market, and you probably wouldn't really want to have it in most cases. But it's the way it's constructed is to say, what would a market look like if people were to buy only on price? If we bought only on price, what would that look like? And in order to have such a model, obviously we need some assumptions. So we can say, well, what's going to make people buy only on the basis of price? And you work that out. You work that out together. And we said there are three obvious big assumptions that we've got to make if people are going to buy only on the basis of price. Firstly, you're only going to buy on price if you're only going to buy the cheapest one. In other words, if they're all the same. So in the books, it'll say that you've got homogeneous products, but all we've said is that means that they are the same. Products are identical. Secondly, we said, well, that's good, but if you don't know they're all the same, or you don't know where the cheapest is to be found, or you don't know the range of firms that there are, then again, you're not going to buy from the cheapest. So therefore, we've assumed that consumers and also firms are very well informed. So consumers know where the cheapest products to be found. They know that the products are identical. Firms understand. Firms all know how to make the cheapest ones. So we assume kind of perfect knowledge for businesses as well. So, or looking at another way, there's no information asymmetry. Would be a different way of putting it from last year. And thirdly, what some of you started talking about was this idea of convenience, that if it's not nearby, if the cheapest one is a long way away, then you're going to buy it. So therefore, we also assume that there are many buyers and sellers. So there's lots of choice. In other words, is what that boils down to. And lastly, so those are three that you worked out. And then lastly, we also said, but there's a risk, obviously, that this is going to break down over time. That what's going to, as the market, if the market expands, a small group of firms will be able to come to dominate. So what we said also is that the market is fully contestable, which is an important word, And what it means is there are no barriers, to entry, or to exit. And there's nothing to stop you from entering or leaving the market. And that's what makes, given that, products are identical, so you're going to want the cheapest one, you know where the cheapest one is to be found, you've got lots of choice, and if ever you start being exploited by groups of firms, somebody new will come in and undercut them, and then you'll be able to buy the cheapest again. So that's what makes a market perfectly competitive. This idea that It's as I said earlier, it's this idea that it's perfectly price competitive. It's not perfect in any real sense. So are there any markets like that? We had to think, and we said that probably the reality is we're talking pretty much about online markets. So if we take something like if we take something like Amazon Marketplace. And I want or just Amazon generally, and I want a book. Ultimately there are lots and lots of different platforms that I could get my book from. There are lots of online booksellers. Suppose I want something that's out of print. Like Hofstadter wrote a book called Meta Magical Themas. Which is a very strange book. But obviously, I don't know whether you can see this, but obviously there's lots of choices. Which one am I going to buy? I could have this one for $26.80. There's one for $22.39. There's one for $15.92. There's one for £73.99. What a bargain. So obviously I'm just going to buy the cheapest one once I've factored in shipping, yeah, because I'm a well-informed consumer. So okay, so what does that what does that mean? Yeah, well, we also said kind of fruit and veg sellers and kind of stuff like this. But what we're saying is that essentially, in this market at least, firms are price takers, and a good way of thinking about it is, you know, something like a fruit grower or a coffee grower in the Central African Republic or something. And the point is that, yeah, the global price of coffee is simply determined by supply and demand, just in the same way as it was last year. So the global price of coffee that, you know, Starbucks are prepared to pay is, say, I have no idea. Let's say it's $10 a hundredweight or something. Yeah? The question is, so that's the industry, and we know the industry is very, very large, yeah, and it's selling billions of tons of coffee. Yeah? What about for the firm? What do things look like for the firm itself? I suppose we have a single coffee grower, yeah, so their scale is very small. A single coffee grower who's selling, you know, coffee to people like Starbucks or whatever, they're selling it on the global market. And at the moment, they're selling, you know, 20 kilos or whatever, you know, at a price of $10. What's going to happen to that firm if it tries charging $10.01? Says to Starbucks, I'm not paying, you know, I'm not going to accept $10. I want $10 and a cent. What's going to happen, obviously, is Starbucks will just go and buy from somebody else. No one will buy from this firm because there are many other sellers who are all prepared to sell at $10. So demand will fall from there straight to zero. So effectively, your demand curve is, well, sort of L-shaped, but horizontal. But in other words, at any price, there's zero. At any price above $10, you sell no units. And a second implication of that is, so that's the firm's demand curve. A second implication of that is that you can sell, you know, if you're currently in the market and you sell another unit, you know, Starbucks comes along, well, on average, you're going to get $10 for those units. And also, if you sell another one, you're going to get $10. Yeah, so again, that's your marginal revenue line. So I mean, as I was saying in the lesson, one way of thinking of it is to imagine there are three lines all sitting on top of one another. But essentially, that line then is showing you either the quantity that you're selling, or it's telling you that you can sell extra units and all your units at $10 each. So that's the model of perfect competition. You need to be able to explain, not to know. You need to be able to explain, just the way I did, why demand is horizontal in perfect competition. So then we said, well, okay, that's all very lovely, but you know, what are the implications, you know, for this firm and industry? And we said, well, okay, one thing we can do is we can say, well, how many units will the firm want to produce, and how much profit will it make? So we said, well, in order to do that, we need, you know, obviously, we're assuming a fifth assumption, like in all markets, is that we're assuming that our business is going to want to maximize its profits. And we know that profits are total revenue minus total cost. So what's going to allow that to happen? So we said, well, okay, look, imagine then that that's my marginal revenue and my average revenue, and it's also the demand line, and that's quantity, and that's money. We said the key curve, we said, is the marginal cost curve. Because marginal cost shows the cost of an extra unit. And I asked you things like, do you want to produce unit A? And so somebody said no, but the answer is that unit sells for $10 and it costs you an extra $3. Therefore, that unit is worth making. As is unit B. It sells for 10 and it costs you about $2.50 to make. As is unit C, which sells for $10 and costs you, say, $5.50. As is unit D, which costs you which sells for £10 and costs you $7. All these units are adding to your profit. So profit is rising all the way up to here until that point there, that we'll call the ETH unit. And what we're saying is, therefore, you want to stop at E. All the units, these units here, they add more to revenue, they add more to your revenue than to cost. Whereas all of these add more to cost, than revenue, and therefore your profits are going to be maximised at that point there, and that is the standard profit maximising assumption. And that's true not just in perfect competition; it's true in all market structures that profits are maximised at the output at which marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Okay, and that's, if you remember one thing, out of any of this, then that's probably the one to remember. And what I always find is that everybody's fine with that until we then put, another line on the diagram. Because the trouble is that we can't use that by itself to show what the firm's profits are. And the reason is that, as we know, marginal costs, if you add up marginal cost, the extra cost of the first unit, the extra cost of the second, the extra cost of the third, and then what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with total variable costs, which is great, but isn't going to tell us about profits because we've got to consider the firm's fixed costs. So to know, we know that total revenue is price times, pot's moving, price times quantity, and we know that price is average revenue. So the reason price is average revenue, by the way, is that we know that average revenue is total revenue divided by output. We know that total revenue is price times quantity, and therefore average revenue is price. So they're the same thing, so you get what you sell them for. It's not rocket science. But we know that total revenue is price times quantity. We want to take away total cost. We know that total cost is average cost times quantity. Because we know that average cost is total cost over quantity. So therefore, all we're going to do is we're going to say, well, at the profit maximising output, what is the unit cost? Which, again, if you're feeling this is all very technical, I'm kind of saying if you sell the pen for £1, then you've made a profit if on average all your pens cost less than £1. It's not too hard. But what you don't want to know is just what the last pen sold. Where's it going? Just what the last pen sold for. That's not enough. We need to know, on average, how much do all our pens sell for. And that was kind of the penultimate thing that we did in the lesson. And we said, well, okay, let's suppose that again we can sell for $10. We know that average cost tends to take that shape. Marginal cost looks like that, for reasons that we've outlined elsewhere. So where's the profit maximising output? At this point, everybody goes, too many lines. But nothing's changed from what happened before. If that's marginal revenue and average revenue, it's a two-stage process. Stage one is the marginal stage. And in the marginal stage, we simply find where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. It's that output there. The firm wants to sell, say, 100 units. So stage one is we find MC equals MR. That gives us, say, Q star. And then at Q star, we simply say, well, what's the firm's revenue? The firm's revenue is 100 times 10, which is that. What's its cost? It's making 100 units, not making 80 units. It's not making 120 units. It's making 100 units. All that matters now is, imagine there's a laser coming up out of Q star. All that now matters is that we know what the unit cost is. So you're selling it for 10, the unit cost is 8, your costs therefore are 800 quid, and your revenue's 1,000, therefore your profit is, that's your cost, the whole thing's your revenue, so that's your profit. And then the very last thing we said is, well, if that was true, and I can't remember whether I put this in the worksheet or not, but if that was true, what would happen in the long run? These firms are making a lot of profit. We said there are no barriers to entry, therefore other firms are going to want to come into this market. So we said, well, let's imagine then what does the industry diagram look like? And we said that again, we've got this situation here where, let's suppose our firm, there's MR and AR, so that's determined P1. That's the price is determined by the industry price there, P1. The firm's producing where MC equals MR there, and currently it's making that level of profit there. In the long run, new firms are going to enter then. There are no barriers to entry. They'd like to make this profit too. So supply is going to start rising, and so it rises to S1. S1 would give us, say, P2. At P2, the firm could still make a profit. So firms are going to keep on entering this market until no surplus profit can be made at all. And in the next lesson, we'll talk a bit about different types of profits, which we haven't really. But the point is that if we just look on another one, what's the price at which it's possible only just to break even? Price is going to be driven down right to the minimum point of the average cost curve like that. Firms will keep on entering until, that should be there. Firms should keep on entering until it's only possible to make what's called normal profit, which I'll talk about tomorrow. So supply keeps on rising, until price is driven down in the market to that level there, to P3. At that point, there's MC equals MR. So MC equals MR is still the profit maximizing output. But the firm can now make any normal profit. It can make no supernormal profit. And the same will be true if the firm's making a loss, and we'll have a look at that again in one of the lessons tomorrow or Friday. We'll look at what happens if firms are loss making. Obviously, what's going to happen there is firms are going to leave. So hopefully that's helpful. Any questions? You can just ask me tomorrow. And have a go at that worksheet, and we'll see where we are.